They say elephants never forget. But what if what they remember isn't just facts, but feelings? What if memory itself is love refusing to fade? This is the true story of an elephant named Kavi and the man who once saved him, a story that proves that sometimes, even across years and miles, an animal's heart remembers what ours might forget. If you've ever wondered whether animals truly feel gratitude, pain, or forgiveness, stay until the end. Because what happened between Kavi and a man named Arun will make you question everything you thought you knew about emotion. Kavi was born in the dusty heat of southern India, part of a herd used by logging camps deep in the forest. When he was young, his mother was taken by poachers, and Kavi, frightened and small, was chained to a post. For years he carried heavy logs through the mud, whipped when he slowed down, hungry when the work was long. His eyes dulled, not from age, but from something deeper, the quiet acceptance of cruelty. One afternoon, while a team of volunteers from a wildlife rescue organization visited the site, a man named Arun noticed Kavi struggling to pull a log twice his size. Blood streaked the elephant's ankle, where the iron chain rubbed. The other men shouted and laughed, but Kavi didn't even flinch, just kept pulling. Something inside Arun broke. He didn't see an animal, he saw a soul, broken and enduring. That night he couldn't sleep. The image of Kavi haunted him. Within a week, Arun quit his job and applied to join the rescue group. It took nearly a year of effort, petitions, and legal battles. But finally, Kavi was freed. When they broke the chain, he didn't move at first. He just stood there, swaying gently, uncertain of what freedom meant. Arun whispered, "It's over now." The elephant blinked slowly, his massive ears flicking once, like he understood. In the months that followed, Arun stayed by Kavi's side at the sanctuary. He learned that elephants, like humans, grieve. When Kavi heard another elephant cry, he would raise his trunk and release a low rumble, a sound not of dominance, but of sympathy. Slowly he began to trust again. He learned to play in the river, to throw dust over his back, to sleep without chains. And sometimes when Arun approached, Kavi would curl his trunk gently around the man's arm, a silent thank you. After 3 years, Arun's work took him away from the sanctuary. He promised to visit again, but life moved fast. His career, his family, his responsibilities, they all filled the space once held by Kavi. 10 years passed. Kavi grew old, his tusks curved and weathered, his walk slower, his gaze deeper, filled with wisdom and something else, patience. Then one day, a terrible flood hit the region. The sanctuary was evacuated. Many animals were relocated to other reserves. Kavi was transported to a different facility over 300 kilometers away. The years rolled on. The old elephant lived quietly, still rumbling softly when he saw new caretakers. But those who worked there often said there was something different about him, a kind of watchfulness as if waiting for someone. Meanwhile, Arun had retired. He moved to a smaller home far from the city, carrying with him memories of a younger, more passionate version of himself, and a photo of Kavi taken the day the chains came off. One afternoon, while reading the news, Arun saw an article about an elephant rescue center in his region, and the name stopped him cold. Kavi, he thought, it can't be. But something in his heart said otherwise. The next morning he drove 5 hours to the sanctuary. The staff was surprised by the old man's story, but they agreed to let him see the elephant from a distance. Kavi was grazing near the fence, his back slightly arched with age. When Arun called softly, "Kavi," nothing happened. The elephant kept eating. Arun tried again, this time whispering the same words he used to say years ago. "It is over now." Kavi froze. The trunk stopped mid-air. Slowly the great creature turned his head. His eyes, clouded with time, locked onto Arun's. Then, with a deep, trembling rumble, Kavi began to walk toward the fence, step by step. His ears lifted, his pace quickened, until he reached the barrier and stretched out his trunk. Arun stood still as tears blurred his sight. The elephant wrapped the trunk gently around his hand, exactly as he had done a decade before. No one spoke. The keepers watched in silence. It wasn't just recognition, it was reunion. For several minutes Kavi stood there, breathing against Arun's face. The old man whispered, "You remembered." And maybe it was imagination, or maybe something more, but a tear seemed to roll from Kavi's eye, cutting a clean line down the dust of his cheek. After that day, Aaron visited often. The two old souls would sit in the shade, one speaking in words, the other in quiet sounds that vibrated through the ground. Aaron began documenting the encounters, and scientists who later studied them said that elephants possess something remarkably close to human empathy. They mourn, they remember faces, they even perform death rituals for their own. But for Aaron, it wasn't science, it was love, patient, wordless, and eternal. When Kavi finally passed away a few years later, the sanctuary held a small ceremony. Aaron placed the same photo, the one from the Day of Freedom, beside a garland of marigolds. The air was still, and for a moment, everyone there felt it. That invisible thread that ties two beings who once saw each other, pain, and chose compassion instead of indifference. Some stories teach us that animals act on instinct, but stories like Kavi Akser show us something deeper, that emotion isn't a human invention. It's part of life itself. Maybe the reason elephants never forget is because their hearts remember longer than ours do. If this story touched something inside you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to When Animals Feel and share this video so others can remember what real empathy looks like. Because sometimes the biggest hearts done to belong to us, they walk on four legs and never forget the ones who showed them kindness.